can we talk? I've had the Sony A7 IV in the office for quite some time. Needless to say, it is a beast and a workhorse of a camera. Let me take this lens off because this is just a bit much. Isn't that nice? That should be on every camera. So I've had this camera and I've been testing it for quite some time. It is a fantastic camera. It truly, truly is. I think that they did a really great job with this, but I want to come at this video a little different. So I just figured we could have a little conversation instead of the traditional way that maybe I might approach a video like this. Because if you're coming from an aps-c sensor size camera, enter the Sony A6600. Same battery. I won't say same great performance in that sense because this is definitely more than this camera. The thing is not just from a weight, it's not just from what the capabilities of this one can do, because this is new 4K 60, albeit at an aps-c crop size. This is full frame. Overall, the sensor is aps-c over here. But when I compare the two, in my general use case, the differences aren't that big. Here's what I mean by that. When I first got the A6600 compared to my A6400, and at the time, I don't think I had the ZV-1. Yeah, I didn't have the ZV-1, I don't think at the time, but I had tried it. So this compared to anything else that I was doing was heavy. So now enter in the A7 IV and testing this camera out, even compared to the A7C, this camera is really heavy. Like this, I will never say the A6600 is heavy because this redefines that for me. The thing is, this camera is right for the right person. I'm just not so sure that this is what's right for me personally. And the reason why I say that is because this camera can do 4K 60. Again, that means it crops down to aps-c sensor size. So you're not getting the full benefit of this being a full frame camera, which is what a lot of people want. I've personally never been someone that cares about full frame in that sense, because the extra millimeters of a width of a distance that you get, or quote unquote the full frame look, like I don't care. None of that stuff matters to me because I personally love aps-c and I personally get the most joy and best use case out of an aps-c sensor. Now this that you're looking at right now is what we would traditionally do for a video. It's in 4K, 24 frames per second. All of our settings and everything are as they usually be. It's probably a little bit brighter. So when you compare the two sensor sizes between aps-c and full frame, there is a significant difference. And this could be from the depth of field of how blurry the background can become. Or it can be not needing to get certain lenses. Full frame lenses are heavier. Again, I care a lot about how heavy my gear is, but this worked. I've tried micro four thirds and I've tried full frame, but for me personally, aps-c has been the way to go. Now this is how we regularly would grade and, you know, work with our footage, which we don't try to do a ton. I don't try to go like super crazy for a stylized look and all of that. So we're going to switch from what we're using right now, which is the ZV-1, and I'm going to pop on the A7 IV, and we'll do, I think we can do the 4K 60, 422 10-bit on the card that I'm using, so we'll go ahead and swap that out. So pay attention to what you see, because we're about to switch from 8-bit color space to 10-bit, and we're going to switch over into the S-Cinetone color space as well, just so you can see the difference. So here we are, we're on this Sony A7 IV now, and just for comparison's sakes, this is what we usually use. It's a customized profile that we use. Don't ask, because I don't feel like getting into details. This is how it usually looks, and now I'm going to switch over to the S-Cinetone, again, for comparison's sake. So before we switch to S-Cinetone, all the settings are literally still the same. We're still on the Sigma 16. We're still a stop overexposed with the literally exact same settings as we were on the ZV-E10. And this is like a customized profile that, for me, my skin tones and the way that I just prefer things look, this is, like I said, you can dial in the detail, the sharpness and all of that. I never go into specifics with that because it changes regularly. So it's a personal preference. So I'm going to switch from what we're using here to the S-Cinetone, but just for comparison's sake, you can see it. Now we're on the S-Cinetone. Already just looking off of the screen without any grades and stuff like that, a lot of creators that are coming from an S-Log2 or an S-Log3 really enjoy the way that this looks. I notice more of like a greenish hue, just again, from what I can see with the LCD screen. I'm not a fan right now, just because one, my eyes are tuned to the way that I already like my stuff to look right now on Sony cameras, and I experiment and I change with that. For again, we could change the way that this looks by switching to S-Log2. And now this is what the S-Log2 footage, again, basic copy paste S-Log footage that's natively set in the camera. Now you do need to expose to the right, which you go up to 2 stops overexposed, so the settings have slightly changed. I don't want to get into details about that, but just roll with the punches here. The thing is that whether you're going from a customized profile that is something that you like personally, to maybe you're using like an HLG, or you're using the S-Cinetone, or you're using the S-Log2 or S-Log3, where it's pretty much going black and white, and the stylized look is honestly based on you. You can make it black and white, you can make it super contrasty, and honestly, having a camera like this that goes literally from 8-bit to 10-bit, you have both available. The way that I like to describe this best is, imagine having a box of crayons and it's like 64 crayons, a lot of colors, but literally not the full scope of that, versus a box of 200 crayons. And now you have all kinds of shades of a variation of a purple, a pink, or orange, or blue. And so that's kind of the difference. However, you take footage, that same exact camera, and you put it into a hand of somebody that has literally put in more hours and more work with the camera, like a Becky and Chris, who I love to reference, or a Donna, who Donna did it, or put it in the hands of Doc Rock, or somebody that really understands color theory and really understands how to take it from that black and white S-Log2, S-Log3 profile essentially, and literally decide what the color scope is. Fantastic. So if you want to learn to color grade, yes, it probably would be easier if you're using 10-bit, but when it comes to 8-bit footage, it's still not so limited that you couldn't do some really good work. And the thing that I have loved about the ZV-1 is that, yes, it's the same sensor. Yes, it's a smaller, cheaper body size. Yes, it is a smaller battery, but it's literally the exact same capabilities that you saw with that Becky and Chris footage is possible on this camera. It's just a matter of skill. So when you take all of this into an account, and you're coming from, let's say, a ZV-E10, A66 or 6400, or even A7C, and you're moving into this 10-bit color space, it still is going to take skill in order to be able to customize and craft the looks. And honestly, I have not maxed what these cameras can do already. So not saying like don't get the 10-bit, because it definitely does help to have a bigger canvas, if you will, and more colors, so that when you are learning color theory, you have more to maneuver with. So if that is your aim, absolutely go for the 4K 60 422 10-bit in this camera. But if you're still running on auto, and you're still pretty much gonna run on auto on the A7 IV, does it really make sense? I don't think so. So let's talk about the 4K 60. Freaking phenomenal. And the fact that it is in an aps-c mode, your lenses, if you're getting full frame lenses, I think it's great to have both, because what I found is that even when you're using a behemoth of a lens, and let me get this lens, when you're using something like this incredible, wonderful, beautiful lens, when you're using something like this, you want the full capacity, the full capabilities of a lens like this. But what I do like about any of the Sony full frame cameras is that you have this aps-c crop mode on there, so you can go from whatever the range is on your lens already and take that into crop mode and get extra reach of that. And I love using this lens in San Diego with the Sony A7C. Now the A7C, I think, is, even though it's a compact camera, it's still well balanced. It basically put me in the mindset of having a A6600 just in a ZV-E10 body. So when you add this lens on here, the quality was exceptional. Caveat: when you're using these full frame cameras in an aps-c crop mode versus just a regular crop camera, you're getting less megapixels or quality, if you will, in a sense, quote unquote, used loosely, out of the sensor. Because whereas this is a 33 megapixel sensor, I still think the A7C is like a 24 something. Put it right here because I don't remember. So you have that, but it's actually less when you go into aps-c mode. Whereas I get the full 24 megapixel sensor in aps-c mode when I just pop it on something like the ZV-E10 or the A6600, which the footage is comparable on either camera. There's literally no difference. So when it comes to stuff like this, I would just say, instead of chasing the latest, greatest gear, make sure it just makes sense. When I was talking to my friend Leela, hashtag Leela from YouTube, make sure you check out her channel. I'll put that link down in the description, as well as like she posts a lot on Twitter, which is really cool. I know she got the A7 IV, and I'm just thinking like, I don't want to carry this big old camera. And she got the A6600 too, and the ZV-1, all for the same reasons. And she made a great point. You can still keep this and travel with this and still switch to the A7 IV so that you have the range and whatnot with what you're doing. And then the final note that I would say when it comes to like the overall quality and stuff like that, because all the Sony cameras are freaking fantastic. I still see people using the Sony A7S Mark II and doing some serious damage with the camera. It looks amazing, like seriously good stuff. Even the A6000 is good. Like, so it just depends. What is the goal for your content? Right now with me and my content goals personally, I want to wait and see what happens with the A7C. It just so happens the day that I'm recording this, Canon released the R7 and the R10. Now, I have no interest in switching back to Canon, but I love competition in the market, because what this does is forces other companies to, one, pay attention or either make a decision as to whether or not they're going to pursue their lineup in that particular area or genre to make it make sense with other products that they release. And they're usually working on stuff years in advance. So it could be some Sony aps-c camera that's going to have 4K 60, and I can afford to wait with hopes that that camera comes out, because one thing that the ZV-E10 and ZV-1 has done is spoil me. When you look at the top of these cameras, they're very, very similar. And it's not just the top of the cameras, it's little stuff that I find extremely helpful, like being able to use the zoom rocker. I'm glad they stole this from some of their NEX bodies and put this on the camera. I actually love the lightweight body, because when I get ready to go out and I'm getting ready to do something, choosing between the ZV-E10 and the ZV-1 is a very easy choice. Do I not want to swap lenses and want the range? ZV-1. Do I want to have flexibilities, or even if I'm just taking one lens, to have that, like when I traveled with this to New York and Albany at People of Video, and I just used a 10 to 18 millimeter lens, so be it. And then I can use clear image zoom and the rocker to get by. So it's little things like that that are at that other entry level area that I honestly just like at this point in creating content. I've literally fallen in love with it, and I want what I want, and that is an A7C Mark II. I'll wait for that 33 megapixel sensor to make its way to the A7C if it's within the next year or so, and then if not, then I guess I'm stuck with getting the A7 IV. But for now, I'm going to wait and stick with my smaller cameras. That honestly, personally, is my personal joy, and it doesn't have to be for you. But I just want to kind of put these thoughts into a video, just kind of have a conversation around this, so that when it comes down to you making your decision, everything looks fantastic on YouTube. Everybody's stuff looks great, but what is it going to mean for you, your goals, and your vision? If I'm going to be putting cameras in the hands of other people, I do want the best, so that they have plenty of range and flexibility to do their work, their creative work, and test and try other things, because at some point I will be handing it off. I'm looking forward to other, hopefully, aps-c cameras, but if not, then I guess we will be moving the full frame. But for now, I'm sticking with my aps-c cameras because it's just my personal joy. Let me know, what are your thoughts? Do you already have like the A7S Mark III or the A7 IV? And what is your personal joys when it comes to using your gear? And of course, we have other A7 IV videos coming, and of course the menu setups and the like. And thank you to Sony for sending this out. With that, guys, live with passion. I'll see you in the next video.